Howdy boys! In this video we're going to go over the top 10 sexiest cars in GTA Online. There's a ton of cars in the game and I didn't leave out any categories on purpose. I just picked the 10 I think are the best, but it was fair game for all cars and categories. This is just my opinion. You guys are welcome to disagree with me. Just know that not everyone's born with a good taste and that's just how it is sometimes. I'm super hyped to make this video, so let's get started. Number 10 on our list is the Ocelot Lynx, which is based on the Jaguar F-Type. This car by default looks a little goofy, but it has some sleek customization options. There's also options that make it look really bulky looking, and of course you can do a race build since it came with the cognoscenti DLC. I think it looks the best with just a simple, clean build like I have here. The car is proportioned really well, not being too long or too short. No side of the car looks particularly bad, and the lights look sick. As for performance, the car is a little mediocre. It definitely isn't the runt of the pack, however. Compared to the rest of the cars that came out from that DLC, it's not fantastic. Its top speed is passable, but there's mad wheel spin on startup and the car really likes to kick out in a kind of jerky way. Like some cars will kick out slowly and it feels like you're driving on ice, but this car feels like it gets hit by a bus when you oversteer with the way the back slides out. I obviously don't have a spoiler on mine because I think all the options that were given are ugly, which would probably help, but in general the handling isn't superb for its price tag. However, this car is of course incredibly good looking still and did make the list of the top 10 sexiest cars in GTA Online. So I would say it's only a tiny bit overpriced for the sake of this list. You can find this car for $1,735,000 on Legendary Motorsports under the 2 doors or next to the rest of the cognoscenti cars and below the Tempesta. Number 9 on our list is the Pegassi Torrero XO, which is based on the 2022 Lamborghini Countach. This car is like violently attractive. When I first saw it in game, my reaction was like, it was audible. You know how like if you're impressed by something but you're in your room by yourself, you're not really gonna talk because there's no one in there, so you just react in your head. But this car was like on another level, so I literally had to be like, oh my fucking god, so that the universe knew how hot I thought it was. This car has really cool features like the active spoiler, which I personally am a sucker for, and the drop down headlights that are also super unique. Performance wise, I kind of have a love-hate relationship with this car. This car is 100% one of the fastest vehicles off the line, and it picks up speed ridiculously quickly for not having any special abilities like boosters or rockets. The handling is a different story though. This car literally weighs less than a feather. So anytime you hit a curb or go over a pebble, you're going to lose all contact with the ground and slam into a wall because you obviously can't brake without touching the ground. The handling is still trash when you're on the ground because the car likes to swing its tail end, and also the brakes take forever to kick in general. Definitely one of the hardest supercars or just vehicles in the game to drive in my opinion, just because of how vastly different the timings are compared to other vehicles. Probably just takes some getting used to, but to me it's just not a very satisfying drive. However, the car does make the list because it's a super sexy, super hot, super beautiful, super hot and super sexy car. It's like your dream girl, literally the 10 is 10 out of 10 on the planet, but if she was an asshole, like absolute trash personality, manipulative, toxic, but you can't bring yourself to leave because she's too pretty. Worth car if it was $1 million cheaper, but if you have money to spare, you can find it on Legendary Motorsports for $2,890,000, near the top of both the featured and the 2 doors at the time of this recording because it's still pretty new. At number 8, we have the Enis Cognoscenti 55. A bit of a sleeper pick in my opinion. Not a whole lot of people talk about or even know that this car is in the game. The only time you really see it is in missions, like when you're picking people up from hotels. I've literally never seen anyone drive this car, aside from Harmon and I, in the 7 years I've been playing this game. It's a bit of a mutt, this one, taking inspiration from the Bentley Continental Flying Spur, Maybach Type 5762, and the Rover 75. This car is long, like not quite limo long, but probably like double the size of smaller cars like the Tropos Rally, the Omni, the ETR1. It also sits pretty heavy. It's really low to the ground and has a very looming presence. Perfect for like the mafia boss aesthetic. Performance wise, it's really slow to get going. There's this Pokemon called a Regigigas who has this ability called Slow Start, where you have to wait 5 turns before you can play the game, and it just feels like that. Like you're holding W for a good like 4 seconds before the wheels actually want to get a grip on the ground. Its handling is not good because the car is long and heavy, and especially downhill once you get up to speed, it's hard to stop. I feel like the brakes are still better than the Torrero XO because it's heavy and it touches the ground, but it's just a hunk of a car. However, the top speed is quite the fighting force. This car has a super high top speed. It's in the top 3 fastest sedans in a straight line, just after the regular and armored shafter V12. I love this car personally. It's an icon to me, and it's my OG Mafia car. It just needs a little bit more of a special occasion to want to drive. You can find this car on Legendary Motorsports for a very low $154,000 towards the bottom of the 4 doors, and the price tag is literally like 15 minutes of passive income. It's so cheap. Definitely worth the cop for maximum drip. It has the MPC seal of approval. At number 7, we have the Lampadati Furore GT. It's another car I think that flies under the radar. It's a super old sports car being released all the way back in 2014. The car is based on a multitude of things, but it primarily takes inspiration from the Maserati Alfieri. The curves on this car are what make it hella sexy. It's pretty rounded all over, especially around the fenders and even more so in the back of the car, making it look thick. It's a pretty sporty looking car even compared to other sports cars, but for the performance, this car is so mid. It's not a terrible drive, but it's not great either. Its top speed is in the middle of the pack for the sports category, and its handling is also mid to low compared to other sports cars because you can't put a spoiler on it. There's literally just no spoiler options. My biggest issue with this car is that there is no customization options, like for anything. No bumpers, no mirrors, no spoilers, no skirts. It like literally has nothing. But it kind of makes sense because it's so old, and a lot of the cars back then didn't have a ton of customization options. I'd love to see a newer version of this car get some love. I've always thought this car looked so good, and it's a shame that no one drives it online, but I think what's satisfying about a lot of other cars is that they're customized to how we want, and there's a lot of variety, which this car definitely lacks. However, the base design of this car is incredibly good looking, and that's why I made this list. You can find this car on Legendary Motorsports near the bottom of the 2-door section, close to the Enis Windsor and the Massacro for $448,000. At number 6, we have the Ocelot XA21. It's largely based on the Jaguar CX-75, and while it's only number 6, it's definitely got to be one of my favorites in the entire game. The first thing that stood out to me about this car was the active spoiler. Like I said before, I'm just a sucker for those. It came out at a time when there were very few cars with active spoilers, so it was still a really cool feature. It also has butterfly doors, which is nice. Maybe not so unique to supercars anymore, but the thing that really made it stand out was the sound. This car rumbles at such a nice pitch that I could never get tired of it. I think it has the same sound as the Sterling GT, which is pretty cool and unique to sports cars. The car overall is pretty round on the edges and is very easy on the eyes. It doesn't have any super eccentric shapes on it, so it's just very calming to look at. The customization is kind of limited, but it has enough to keep me from complaining. Another cool feature is that this was one of the first cars to be added where the stock rims change color, which is super cool because there literally isn't another wheel option that looks like the stock rim of this car. Performance-wise, it's not the top of the line or anything, but it's a really pleasant drive. Literally nothing to complain about. It accelerates pretty quickly without much wheel spin. It doesn't over or understeer. The turn radius is just perfect. It's decently fast, probably not for a race setting anymore, but it's definitely one of my favorite free mode cars. It might be the car that I pull out the most for free mode driving. Out of all of the cars on this list, this is definitely one I would recommend buying the most. I can't praise this thing enough. It's just absolutely amazing. You can find it on Legendary Motorsports just after the Cunning Stunts cars. If we're talking about release dates, above the Cunning Stunts cars if you're just scrolling down. It's priced at $2,375,000, which is a bit of a hefty price tag, but I think it's worth every penny. Diving into the top 5, we have the Pegassi Toros, which is based on the Lamborghini Urus. I hope this isn't too hot of a take. I know that SUVs aren't typically at the top of people's lists, but I think most car companies have pretty good looking SUVs, and Lamborghini still blows them out of the water. It might be partially because of the status, but you can't deny that it's a good looking car. The Taurus is built almost exactly like the Urus. It's round and it's a little heavy, feels tankier than other SUVs, but is still a nice drive. It has a fair bit of customization, not so much that I get excited, but not too little that I have anything to complain about. The stock rims on this car are so sick, but the car looks good with almost any rim type. Something unique about this car is that no spoiler options actually add traction. It's actually the front bumper that gives you that bonus, which is super unique. I feel like the car understeers just a tiny bit, but it's still by far the fastest SUV in the game in both top speed and around a track. On the expanded and enhanced edition of the game, Pfister Astron Custom HSW is the fastest car in the SUV category, but I can't really give you guys details because I play on PC. On PC and last gen consoles, the Toros is still the fastest from what I've heard, and you can get it on Legendary Motorsports for just under $500,000 under the 4-Doors tab. In fourth, we have the Progen Tyrus, which is based on a combination of the McLaren F1 GTR Longtail, Selena S7, and Mosler MT900R. When this car first came out, I thought it looked so goofy because it's ridiculously long, but it grew on me so fast that I didn't care like 2 days after it was released. It looks like an alligator in the front, and gators are pretty sick animals, very menacing. While the thing is literally longer than the Titanic, it still looks like a car from the sides and the back. The car isn't as sleek as others on this list because it has ridges all over since it's a race car, but it still has that aerodynamic ramp shape that makes it look cool, and it's very low to the ground. My main issue with it is that there aren't very many customization options, even the race liveries when it's part of the Cunning Stunts DLC. However, the car does look nice enough to be able to pull up with a bunch of different styles and have it work. There's only 2 big looming wings, which is kind of lame. I think this car would definitely benefit from more spoiler options, but I think it pulls them off nonetheless. Performance-wise, this car is pretty decent. It used to be among the top supercars. However, it has been knocked further down the list as new cars release. It does have a pretty high top speed and handles itself well in the corners, not really over or understeering, and it grips well. And the best part is that this car sounds absolutely amazing. Some people could see it as like an RC car sound, but I personally love it. Definitely in the top 5 favorites for me. You can find this car under the 2 doors next to the rest of the Cunning Stunts cars on Legendary Motorsports for $2,550,000. Burns a hole in your wallet, but it's worth its price, and I don't think you'll be disappointed with your purchase. At number 3, we have the Declasse Mamba, a classic sports car based on the Shelby Cobra. The detailing on this car is absolutely immaculate. I feel like all of the features put onto this car were intentionally placed, so it takes up the exact amount of space it needs to. No part of the car is overbearing, and it meshes well together. Even though this car doesn't have the most customization since it was released back in 2015, there's a ton of different looks you can pull off because of how unique looking it is. The accents are in all the right places and are all color coordinated to be chrome, which is awesome because sometimes Rockstar mismatches the customization options. My favorite part of the car is definitely the lights on both the front and the back. They look super awesome in the vertical formation in the back, and from the front it's definitely giving you the hard stare down. For the performance, it doesn't handle the best because there's no spoiler option you can add, but by no means is it a horrible drive. It feels a lot like a muscle car behind the wheel, but it's definitely controllable, not as bad as the Dominator, for example. It does have a pretty high top speed for a sports classic car and is very fun to take out on the road. For sure, a top choice for me for driving around in free mode. You can find this car on Legendary Motorsports near the Pfister 811 and Vapid FMJ for $995,000. Do I think it's worth it? Like, most definitely. I've never taken the Mamba out and been like, damn, I really wish I hadn't bought this car, nor have I ever had a thought about selling it. The runner-up for our list is the Progen T20, which is based on the McLaren 720S. I'm sure you all know of this car because it was the fastest supercar in the game when GTA was in its prime years, and till this day, to me, it seems like the face of the game. Like, if there's a car that's going to be shown off as the GTA car, it's definitely the T20. I like how it's low in the front and curves around the back fenders, while leaving a dip in the middle of the car as room for the active spoiler, one of the first cars in that game to have that feature included. The car is quite a nice drive. Sometimes I feel like it's a little light and can get spun out in bushes, but that's only an issue when you're off-roading with it. On the pavement, it sticks nicely and doesn't like to slide out, providing a smooth driving experience. It doesn't have immense customization because it's older, but the color placement on the car allows for a ton of variety. This is personally one of my favorite cars in the entire game, partially because of nostalgia and partially just because it looks super cool. That was when I was like first introduced to McLarens, so I thought it was really cool to see in game. It doesn't really sound like anything special, but the experience with the T20 is like going on a nice date because there's nothing to complain about and it's just a fun time. You guys can find this car in Legendary Motorsports for $2.2 million towards the bottom because it's getting old. But if you do have the money to spare, definitely a worth purchase. The sexiest vehicle out of every vehicle in GTA Online is the Declasse asea. This car is based on the Chevy Aveo, and I'm sure you guys can all agree that the shape is astounding and definitely doesn't look like a wiener dog with the wheel size being so small. Trust me, it's intentional design that only true artists can appreciate. Rockstar actually took the design of this car and ran it by the Pagani owner, and he gave it his seal of approval, so you guys know it's legit. It can take more rockets than both the MOC, which takes 68 if I remember correctly, and the Canis Seminole, which takes 300. The exact number of rockets it can take is 301. This car is an absolute beast in combat and is great for taking out Kosatkas with its underwater capabilities. If you guys don't believe me, believe in our favorite Uncle Lester because this car is nominated by him as the sexiest car in GTA Online. He rocks one himself. This is the most worth vehicle I've ever purchased in GTA Online, and you guys can get one too for only $12,000 on Southern San Andreas. I think it must be a price glitch of some sort on Rockstar's end because no way the asea is that cheap intentionally. Just kidding, guys. The true #1 spot belongs to the brand new Entity MT, which is based on the Koenigsegg Jesko that came out with the Los Santos Drug Wars DLC. I don't want to say that this is recency bias. I'm not even sure I can put it into words, but I'll try my best. It's an absolutely beautiful car. The curves on it are so unique and give off that oceanside highway kind of vibe. This car is pretty petite and doesn't like to take up too much space, but accomplishes displaying its cool features with less room. Nothing feels out of place on this car except for maybe the carbon roof because it looks like your barber messed you up and left a bald spot, so he's like, sorry bro, we gotta go bald. I wish the car had a few more options in the hood and roof categories for customization, but Rockstar did go crazy with the spoilers and exhaust. There's a ton that all fit the aesthetic of the car, and literally 0 of them look bad. Especially the wings are all very unique to this car and give it a dolphin-like aesthetic. Performance on this car is a little disappointing. It feels like the car can't shift gears up and bottlenecks the top speed. Its handling isn't too bad though, and after driving the car for a while, it doesn't seem as bad as the initial impression. Hopefully Rockstar patches its stats to better justify its price tag of $2,355,000, where you can find it at the top of Legendary Motorsports. That's all for this video. Drop a like if you guys enjoyed it. I had a ton of fun making it. Let me know in the comments what you guys thought of my list and what you would add or replace. Sub if you guys are new to the channel. There'll definitely be more videos like this coming out in the future. And that's about it. So I'll see you boys in the next one. Take care. Peace.